You are watching a screencast that will provide some overarching ideas, key lesson activities, and prioritize learning standards for Unit 2 of Freshman Literacy. The purpose of this screencast is to give you some of the overarching ideas to help make sense of the unit as you begin to learn the curriculum and lesson plan in more detail. First, the title of this unit is Expository Communication. This is important because it's important for us to remember that we are teaching students the skills of expository communication. That's where our literacy part comes in. But the theme of this unit is careers and professionalism. So one question that students will be thinking about throughout the entire unit is, what skills can I develop today to prepare for tomorrow? So throughout this unit, students will start by selecting and thinking about various careers that they're interested in. They will ultimately pick one career that they are going to think about for the entire unit. In this unit, they will have several activities that focus on professionalism, both in nonverbal, verbal communication, and also in the documents that you send. They will also have the opportunity to participate in a peer interview in which students will have a mock interview and be given some type of feedback on their performance. Another key part of this unit is the career portfolio. This is something that's introduced in the very first lesson plan, and so this is different than their actual portfolio, which many of you have been keeping throughout the entire year. This is the end of unit assessment, and so students will need several drafts of various documents to go into this portfolio. One document that will be in this portfolio is the resume. Students should have several drafts of this in the portfolio. They will also include a letter of intent, which is their mid-unit assessment, and that will also have a reference sheet attached. Students will include an interview, peer evaluation, and metacognitive response, referring to how they did on the interview piece. And then at the end of the unit, they will write a one-page reflecting on their skills and abilities and how they've improved throughout this unit. They will also include some type of follow-up communication to their employer that they would send as a thank you note or something similar to that after their interview is complete. So that was some of the overarching big ideas throughout the unit. I'm now going to spend some time looking at each individual lesson plan just to give you some brief highlights as you start to plan. So in lesson 2.1, we start off with a word splash, very similar to the same word splash that we saw at the beginning of lesson 1.1. Students will still participate in the same type of round robin activities, but they'll just have some new words. They will also have the opportunity in this lesson to write their very first draft of their resume. It will just be with pencil and paper, so it'll be very rough. They will also read an article thinking about strengths and weaknesses and use our Power 10 strategy of the question chunk annotate. At the end of this lesson, you will assign the career portfolio. In lesson 2.2, students start to think about different careers that they're interested in. They'll start by brainstorming some of their interests. They'll think about 5 careers that they're interested in. From that list of 5, they'll select 3 careers to do some research online with various online interactive tools that are provided. Students will then ultimately pick one career that they want to research for the rest of the unit. And they will assess their own strengths and weaknesses, thinking about the types of qualities and things that someone in that job would need, and assess if they're on track to getting a job like that, and if they're not, what types of things would they have to do to get more on track for that. And they'll reflect on their current resume after coming to that realization. Then in lesson 2.3, they start to discover 21st century skills, and they do this through a data set. So this is another lesson where they're going to be doing some collaborative work. So once students kind of explore and understand what 21st century skills are, they will again reflect and see if they have 21st century skills or if it's something that they need to add and develop. And they will start to think about concrete ways that they could begin developing those right now. Lesson 2.4 is going to feel much more like a regular English lesson. In this lesson plan, students think about the similarities and differences between persuasive and expository writing. So they'll really have the opportunity to make connections between Unit 1 and Unit 2. In lesson 2.6, students will learn about references and how to ask someone to be a reference. They will create a reference list that could be attached to their resume. In lesson 2.7, it's a very interactive lesson where students are actually learning the professional greeting, so they will actually learn how to shake hands, make eye contact with someone. They will watch a sample interview using one of our Power 10 strategies called Picture Inductive Model, and then they'll begin preparing for their own interview. They will learn about legal and illegal interview questions and how to navigate through an interview when someone does ask an illegal question. And then again, they'll start to plan for that job interview. The job interview happens in lesson 2.8. So they will do a peer interview. They will be evaluated by a peer, and then they'll complete a metacognitive response reflecting on their performance in that lesson. Lesson 2.8 was definitely a favorite for many teachers last year, and so I anticipate the same to be true for this year. So again, those were some of the lessons. Things that you'll want to be thinking about as you're preparing for this unit is how will you structure the career portfolio assignment. Since it's something that's so big, you'll want to think about if you want to have students bring in an extra folder or a binder, again thinking that this is a different portfolio than the regular portfolio we have set up for the entire year. Last year we had a couple of teachers who decided to do this online through My Big Campus or Schoology, and if that's something that you're interested in, I can definitely work with you to set that up. Another thing that you'll want to think about is the writing process. This is a key element of this unit. Students are constantly working on documents, getting feedback, and working on refining. One thing that we've seen from freshmen is they like to just turn in their first draft, and so you're going to need to foster that writing process and getting them to be critical about their own writing and constantly going back to make improvements. And then finally, thinking about reflection and metacognition. In almost every lesson, students are asked to reflect on their own abilities or to think about what progress they've made. So you're going to want to think about how you will foster that in your classroom as well. So those are some of the big ideas for Unit 2, Expository Communication. As always, if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to help, and good luck.